Let's go. Can't lose. Can I spell? There we go. What is going on, y'all? How we doing tonight? I know it's been a minute. I know we had to take a break because V-Day, of course, I couldn't do Making the Case on V-Day. We know that you guys had y'all other commitments, but nevertheless, we are back in full effect. I'm so excited to be joining you guys again for Making the Case for your lawyer dreams. Of course, we're going to let the room fill up like we always do. I want you guys to let me know where it is that you're viewing our session from. Of course, I'm holding it down over here in the Midwest. What's going on, Brianna? What's going on, Miss Anna? What's going on, Janae? What's going on? How we all doing today? Excuse me. And so I'm really excited. Of course, this past week, we've been able to have a lot of great news, a lot of people getting accepted into law school. Also, one of the things I want to also do while we wait for our guests to come on is I also want to make sure and give this space. What's going on, twin? What's going on, sis? I see you. And so I also want to utilize this space to also drop some gems, some dimes to be able to help you guys wherever you are on your journey. What's going on, Sasha? What's going on, Attorney Pal? Thank you guys for joining us. Of course, I want you guys to fill my chat box up. Let me know where it is, where you are viewing our session from. One of the things I always tell you guys is no matter where you are in your journey, I want you to make sure that you're able to come to our IG Lives every Wednesday at 8 and be able to say that you come away fed, getting some information to be able to help you on your journey. Understand this, man. I want you to make sure that any question that you have, wherever you are in your journey, what's going on? We got Florida in the house, PA in the house, Miami in the house. That's what's up. Texas in the house. What's good? What's going on, Maya? Where we at, sis? And so as our room fills up, I want you guys, we got PA again in the house. That's awesome. I want to make sure and let you guys some very important information. Right now, of course, if in fact you VA, what's going on? DMV holding it down. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, sis. We got official Miss Reynolds. What's going on, sis? How we doing? Alicia? I'm proud of you, Alicia. I'm proud of you, Alicia. Keep fighting, sis. I want to utilize this space also to be able to inform you guys. If in fact you've already applied to your law schools, one of the things I do not want you to do is what? Just wait. Understand that while you're waiting, a lot of things are happening behind the scenes. Opportunities are being extended. Gems are being dropped. And I want to make sure that you guys are also in a position to be able to secure these opportunities as well. You hear what I'm saying, Alicia? You feel what I'm saying, Tariq? Because what I want you guys to be able to understand is when you apply to law school, of course you can just wait, do nothing. But that's what everybody does, right? But remember, one of the things I told you guys is I always want to encourage you guys to do what other people aren't doing in this law school application cycle. So while everybody else is waiting, I want you guys to understand that you have a once-in-a-life opportunity to be able to pull up to these law schools. What? I know you may say, but Anthony, I'm scared. What's going to happen? I want to give you guys some, I guess I'll tell you a story as we wait for our guest speaker to come on. One of my students up in NY, holding it down, love her, from the Bronx. She was waiting. She got applied to law school, just like everybody else. So a lot of people out there, gracefully, you applying to law school, submitted her apps, and she told me, Anthony, what should I do? What should I do? I told her, I said, sis, how far are you from the law school that you applied to? She said, I pass by it every day on the train. I said, how about you pull up? What? I said, I want you guys to be able to understand. So what did she do? She ended up pulling up to the law school, had her letter of continued interest in her hand, also had her letters of recommendation in her hand. And guess what? Was able to go to admissions, have a conversation with the admissions office, shake their hands, and physically exchange her letter of continued interest, and also extend her letters of recommendations. And you know what happened after that? They gave her the blueprint. They said, we want you to do this every month. to make sure that we don't forget about you. So make sure that you call this person and say this. So that way, when we are going to make a decision, that you'll be a person that we won't forget about. Think about that. Think about that, right? I want you guys to understand the opportunities that could be made available to you just by you being able to take a step out on faith. Congratulations. I see y'all. Congratulations, Mabel. And so I want you guys to understand the opportunities that could be made available by you taking a step that other people are doing. Because check this, fam. I want you guys to tell me how many emails you got on your phone right now. Keep it a buck. Fill up my chat box. Kayla, how many emails you got right now that you have not opened? Tariq, how many emails you got right now in your phone that you have not opened? Fill them up with the chat box. Let me tell you how much I got. Let's see. Unopened emails I got right now is 1,221. Nikita, how many unopened emails you got on your phone right now? Vila said 120K. Gracefully Kennedy said at least 1,000. Faith Indigo, how many unopened emails you got on your phone right now? Kay said 11,000. Now check this out, Kay. This was going to blow your mind. How many emails do you think law schools got? Patty, what's going on, sis? We got to connect. How many unopened emails do you think your law school that you want to go to, Chanel, how many unopened emails you think they got? Takia, how many emails you got on your email right now, sis? Unopened. So I want you to think, right? So if all I'm going to do is send an email, if Takia told me that she got 11K in her email address right now, how many emails you think law schools got? Takia says she got 50K. Mabel says she got 1,000 plus. So we have to think, if I really want to go to law school, and I'm not saying that people who are sending emails with their letters of continued interest really don't want to go to law school, but what I want you guys to realize is I want people to be able to see what you're willing to do, how much you're willing to go in regards to emptying out of the tank to make this opportunity possible, right? And so if I know that Takia got 50K emails unopened, Attorney Powell said he got 64K unopened, right? These law schools got emails for days. And I don't want you guys to find yourself in the opportunity of you shooting your shot, y'all, to get lost in emails. So maybe you say, well, Anthony, I don't live near the school. Maybe I can call then. Maybe I could be able, I want you guys to understand that every barrier that you make, there's somebody else who's willing to do a little bit more. So does that mean that maybe we may be having a weekend drive where we rolling up to the school, scheduling a visit, so that way you could be able to talk to admissions. Listen, fam, I know this is I know you're nervous. I know you're scared. We don't want to go through this process of being rejected. But one of the things I want you guys to understand, and everybody can see this, and even my man that we're going to speak to in a minute can talk to, you have to step out your comfort zone. It's so many opportunities. This young lady now got the blueprint from the law school of what to do to get off the wait list, just by simply making a stop at the law school that she passes every day to work. Imagine you being able to do that same thing. We want to be able to be proactive. I know, for example, if the law school is hosting events, check them out and go. Meet and greet, engage. I know at CUNY Law School, they have something called the Pipeline to Justice. Have virtual events, in-person events. You know what? Show up. Build those meaningful relationships. Make a way to be able to connect. My man said walking in my... Okay, we're waiting for our guy, our king, to be able to join us now. And so I hope that what I'm saying to you, somebody out there listening is going to be like, I'll bet I'm about to make it happen. And at the same time, there's also someone saying, oh, I'm not going to do that. And I want you to be able to understand this is that mindset difference could be the difference, Rafa, of you being accepted into law school and you being stuck on the wait list. At the end of the day, I tell people this whole law school thing, it ain't got nothing to do with IQ. It has everything to do with who wants it more. So Tabor says, should we start before we start applying? honestly, I always tell people you need to pull up to the law. I know every law school that I went to, I went and go and visit. I visited before I applied. I visited after I applied. And I went and pulled up to every type of open house visit day that they had. Because I wanted them to get an opportunity to get a chance to know me. I wanted them to get an opportunity to be able to say, hey, because I did not want to leave anything to chance. I hope that answered that particular question. So understand this. There's somebody out there at the same time there's someone saying, nah, I'm not about to do that. It's somebody else, baby. Bet. Pulling up to this school, pulling up to that school. And anybody talking about distance, I'd be like, bet. Somebody else is saying, all right, we're about to make a weekend out of it. We're going to go on Thursday and stay the whole weekend. But I tell you, we have to be able to understand that we have to extend outside of our comfort zone. And I know one of the things that's scary, but also there's so much freedom there. There's so much liberation there. And I know one of the things I also really want to preach to you guys is the power of being able to have an open mind. I know that we have our top schools that are comfortable for us. We ain't got to change our leases. We're able to commute. We ain't got to take our kids out of childcare. But sometimes for us to pursue that dream of becoming a lawyer, we may have to make some changes. And I want you guys to be able to understand that maybe, just maybe, if we don't get accepted into law school, maybe a part of it's because we were in this box and we refused to go outside of it. Now, one thing I'll say is I never, ever badmouth schools, but if you have your top choice school, maybe your pathway to that top choice school is first making a detour at another law school first. And so I want you to make sure that you're having an open mind. I will never forget the story of one of my very, very first students ever in Becoming JD. Her dream, her passion, she wanted to go to Harvard Law. She got waitlisted at Harvard, got into UCLA, got into Stanford, and got into Yale. But you know what? She didn't go. Why? Because she only was willing to go to Harvard Law School. She was not able to see that the pathway to Harvard could have been going to Yale, could have gone to UCLA, and then diverting back to Harvard. And she ended up never, ever going to law school. And she said it was because of Harvard. No, it wasn't. It was because she was not able to see that there was a pathway that took her to Harvard, but may have started in Berkeley, that may have started in Palo Alto, that may have started at Yale. So understand that, you guys. Your path to becoming a lawyer, for so many of us, and I'm sure my man Yoshi can attest to this, it did not initially be attached to a law school. It was attached to a dream. And that's a dream that could take place anywhere, okay? And so I really want you guys to be encouraged and be open to these opportunities, okay? And so, because I really want to see everybody in this chat into somebody's law school. I truly believe that anybody could go to law school. I don't care what your LSAT scores are, what your GPA is. You can go to somebody's law school. But the question is, are you willing to show them that you can be able to do the work? And I just want you guys to be encouraged throughout this process. And also, of course, give a big shout out to the young lady who got a full scholarship to NCCU Law. I know I'm going to be making some posts later this week. We have another phenomenal student who got a full scholarship to FAMU as well. And so I want to be able to celebrate your flowers because I want to give you all those flowers. And of course, we want to make sure that you guys feel encouraged. I hope this is a great space for you to feel encouraged. And without further ado, fam, I want to go ahead and get this king on. I've been on his podcast before. My man's name's Yoshi. My man is doing big things. He has a vision. And you know what? I want you guys to join and be a part of it. Make sure you guys stay tuned, locked in. Let's go ahead and get him on, hear his story, so you guys can also realize, man, I got this. It may be hard, but I got this. Let's go ahead and get this king on so you guys can also join in the chat. Let's go. Let's see here. Pop up. Is he coming? I hit it again. Thought I had my little Steve Ari. Steve. There we go. What's going on, King?
What's going on, brother? How are you?
I am blessed. Man. I'm so excited to be able to have you on. You're doing a lot of amazing things. You hear me, bro?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm good. Can you hear me okay?
Absolutely. You're doing a lot of amazing things, man. You're definitely setting the blueprint for aspiring lawyers and also debunking a lot of myths to let people know that, man, you can do this. And so without further ado, I want to give you the floor so you can introduce yourself. We can go ahead and get this thing rolling.
Yeah, man. Well, I appreciate the opportunity to speak. I know we've definitely been supporting each other for a minute now. So for those that don't know me, my name is Yoshi Haney, current fourth year corporate associate, uh, doing a lot of different things. I mean, I'm an attorney by trade, but it's so much bigger than that, right? Like expanding access, resources, and mentorship for the people who look like us.
Absolutely.
Expanding what is the 5%. And so I've entered a space where you don't see a lot of us. I mean, law is one story, but private equity in the corporate space is a whole different story, which we can get into. I know a lot of us probably hear what big law looks like. But what makes my story unique is I was the first person from my law school, which was John Marshall at the time, to get to the top firm in Chicago, which was, Kirkland and Ellis. And so to have that opportunity to do very well in my grades and really just to prove a lot of people wrong, even
Right.
myself, I think was a huge part of my journey. And really just shooting for what I thought wasn't possible, but just going off on the strength of hard work, the people who had laid the foundation before me, and really just to use and exhaust all the resources and the access that I fought so hard for and expand it for people coming after me has been a huge part of what I do, what I continue to do with the law school mentor and now the med school mentor. So big
Right.
dreams, bigger goals, and here to help as many people as I can.
And right, I want you guys to hear what you said. Here to help as many people as he can. I want you guys to understand like the phenomenal work that is. So tell them a little bit about Law School Mentor, what that is, and how they could be able to get involved with it.
Yeah, absolutely. So the law school mentor started as nothing more than me looking for a way to help as many people as I could. Coming from a non-top 100 law school, you have a lot of people tell you, well, you should shoot for the middle, you should shoot for smaller types firms, and these type of opportunities, despite the fact that I graduated in the top 15 law students of my class. Um, but for me, it was going from that non-top 100 law school to a top
Yeah.
10 firm that had so many people asking, like, well, how did you do it? Right. And so just opening up about my experience, realizing that I had a lot of people within what is now UIC asking how to do it, mentoring them, that then translating into, of course, when COVID happened, I was the SBA president of my law school, leading us through a merger, but realizing that like if I'm doing this all within my school and I'm having the neighboring schools, it's starting to get to the DePauls, the Kents, the Loyolas, and they're asking me for the same type of advice. I can only imagine how many non-top 14 or non-top 20 schools there are out there, and the students who need the image and access of what it means to dream bigger than what our environment sort of encourages us to do. And so I started the law school mentor with the hope of just continuing that. I had hundreds and hundreds of people in my network. You all hear about how important it is to network and build relationships. Law school so litigation focused that I took a lot of my contacts, the ones seeing as though I was going to go into transactional corporate practice. I wanted to expose the great people I had met who had been so helpful to me to all the people coming after me. And so I started a virtual coffee talk series, doing something just like this,
Mm-hmm.
where I was, exposing people to my network, and giving people, expanded vision of what it means to be an attorney, right? A lot of us come in thinking we want to be criminal defense attorneys because we've been negatively impacted in some way, shape, or form by the law, but showing people that like there's hundreds of different areas and hundreds of
Yeah.
different avenues. And of course you don't dream what you don't see, but even bigger is seeing it in black and brown attorneys, right? So the law school mentor has now turned into 2 virtual coffee talks a week that my team does. I also do a mentorship program where I've mentored about 15 to 20 students a year for the last 3 years. This is my third class, and I have the Law School Mentor, which is a fully functioning nonprofit that now mentors, and all of the resources are free, right? So if you're looking for mentorship, you may not see yourself in my story, being a Chicago attorney, a transactional attorney, going to UIC. Well, here's 50 different examples of mentors who, if you don't see yourself in me, connect with them, right? And so to give them and anyone after me the opportunity to build a network and build that community, right? Of not just people who you get in front of them and they're helpful, right? Like there's a difference between people who you get in front of and they give you helpful information, but people who genuinely have a desire to help you, right? And that's the impetus and sort of the brand behind the Law School Mentors, to build a helpful community of ones that if I don't have the answer, they don't have the answer. Well, together we do. And right. And if I don't have the resource, this person probably does. And if they don't have the resource, another person does. So just here to help, just here to be helpful, and have an organization that has now expanded to not just equate for the law side, but now the medical side as well. So we have the law school mentor and the med school mentor.
Awesome, you guys. We got a lot of people with questions. And one of the things I want to be able to first start with is because first tell people how you ended up at UIC in the first place. Because one of the things I tell people is often about finding schools that match and align with you, as opposed to maybe looking at other factors that oftentimes you may see in U.S. news. How'd you end up pinpointing and selecting UIC?
Yeah, I'm not even gonna make it anything harder than it needs to be. I mean, to be honest, I knew I went to University of Missouri for undergrad, and I also realized that the country, the corn is not for me. I had to be back in the city. And so I have a lot of family from here, so I knew I wanted to go to Chicago Law School. But outside of that, I applied to the Chicagoland law schools. I self-studied. I tell everyone coming after me, if you're talking about LSAT advice, if you're talking about how to get into law school, like be better than me, right? Like take the things that I didn't do. I self-studied. I got a 149 on the LSAT. I had a 3.3 GPA. I'm very, very organic and authentic to my journey. But I applied to all the Chicagoland schools. I got waitlisted at most of them, and the first one to accept me was UIC, which was John Marshall at the time. And so once I did my tour and realized, I had a top 10 writing program, at the time I wanted to be sports entertainment attorney, which I still have a lot of interest in. Realizing that IP was a heavily rooted focus. I'm like, they got a top 20 IP program, they got a top 10 writing program. I feel like I can do what I want to from here. I like the people, I like the faculty, and so I'm going to choose to go here. Uh, but I think really what that equated to was opportunity, right? Like the opportunity to get a law license, and realizing that it wasn't just the name, but I could make the name if I had access, right? So getting in the same rooms as those who do go to T14 schools, even if I had to hustle a little harder, realizing that there's a lot of different ways to enter the same place that some of my counterparts at the T14 schools went to, right? Diversity fairs and applying directly and getting out here and getting people to actually know who you are and why they should believe in you, has turned into really my journey of conquering law school, and hopefully creating that same path of an image of access of what that looks like for others to replicate.
And so for you guys who just joined the chat, we're on the line with this king, Yoshi. My man is a fourth-year associate doing big things, and he's also created a law mentor program to help aspiring lawyers in their journey, all right? And I want you guys to be able to understand what he just said here, because I'm going to cut some stuff down and break it down for people to be able to understand. My man, what he said is, listen, if you want something, you can't be passive. One of the things that Yoshi said, all right, so, I'm going to go visit the schools. A lot of you guys out there, oftentimes, we just are looking things at the surface, going to see the websites, and that's the way that we're making our judgment about schools. When oftentimes that's probably the worst way to make a decision about a school. He went in, saw the campus, felt the vibe of the community, and did we say anything about rankings here? Did we say anything about tiers when you talked about your explanation? Because where you're able, the school that you select should be a school that's going to be able to support you enough where you're able to thrive. One of the things I jokingly but seriously tell people is, you know how you learn. You know what environment you need to be in to be your best self. But oftentimes when we go to law school or are selecting law schools, we kind of forget about that. And you said straight up, you said, I went to Missouri. I realized that wasn't a vibe for me. I had to have a community of support with my family nearby. And I also had to go to a law school where I knew that I was going to be supported. And one of the things I want to ask you also about that is, it's like, talk about like the foots on the ground. How was your experience networking with not being at a T14 law school in regards to trying to navigate and get experience and opportunities?
Yeah, I mean, that's something I find myself talking about all the time, right? Like, the reason why networking is so critical, is we're building trust, right? Like, trust is what the society operates off of. And when you talk about entering law schools, applying to law schools, applying to law firms, applying into places that we've never had the opportunity to exist in, and places that we don't come from as first gen, having a blueprint isn't critical, right? So having people who give us access to their experience, who give us the keys, the resources, the mentorship. I'm a firm believer that if you don't learn from exposure, you're going to learn from experience, right? And so to be exposed to different people's pathways is critical. And law school's 3 years. It may seem like a long time, but I always say that like law school really should be 4 years because it's the year leading up to it, as well as that first year. So the first half of that is the most critical, right? And you can lock up a career in your first year of law school, which is what I did. And so to have that model and also going to a non-top 100, non-T14 law school, I knew I had to hustle harder for the opportunities if I wanted to shoot for a certain level. That's not to say it was impossible. And for many people, they did think it was possible. But you also, I think what was rooted in my success was I wasn't going to let the opportunities wait for them to come to me, right? I had to create those opportunities. And I realized I had opportunity to create those opportunities by being in the building. To have and say I'm obtaining a Juris Doctor degree was all the respect I needed to get into a lot of these rooms. Right now, there's going to be plenty of people who write you off because you don't go to X school, but your job is to make them feel you, right? Like, and I think at the end of the day too, a lot of people are going to write you off even if you go to the T14 schools, right? They're going to be looking for reasons to write you off. And so, I go back to this trust idea because when you're building trust, networking is so critical because the day you plant the seed is not the day you eat the fruit, right? So if you're networking, you got to water that seed. You plant a seed, you want to connect with someone, water that seed consistently. And by the time you apply to law school, this person can write you a letter of recommendation, right? They can advocate for you, right? And let's think about this super practically. If you're applying to a law school, you're applying to a law firm. I worked at the top firm in Chicago. We get thousands of applications for people who want to work here. I don't care if you went to Harvard or you went to insert X school. How do you make a determination to go from thousands of applications to a percentage as such, right? And even though we had 100 people classes, to go from 1,000 to 100 when you have the top recruits and candidates from across the U.S. and everyone has to feel like they're a top candidate.
Right.
Just because I didn't go to Harvard doesn't mean I'm not a top candidate. I will run circles around a Harvard candidate, right? You gotta have that type of confidence. But outside of that, how do you make those decisions? And the thing about it is, none of us, I guarantee no one in this chat, coming out, your big law salary, it's not a secret. You come out making $200,000+. So I don't know anyone in this chat who would sit here and go and invest $200,000 of their own money in a brand that they never heard of. So
Wow.
what makes y'all any different? I'm reading all these names and figuring out who am I supposed to interview? Who am I going to hire? And these are all brands I never heard of. You guys are all people I've never heard of. But if I can go to a confidant or a classmate, an employee that I work with, an associate in my class and say, you know what, like, have you heard of this person? Do you know who this is? Oh yeah, that's my mentee. I've talked to them 3 or 4 times. That puts you light years ahead of all the competition, right? Because at the end of the day, the first interview, let's say you even get the interview, it's 20 minutes long. What no one can convince me in 20 minutes that you're worth $200,000. I don't care who you are, right? And so to have the ability to build relationships, have people advocate for you, that's why you hear mentors, sponsors. How much would it take for you to go out on a limb and put your name on the line for a stranger? Because that's what everyone is, right? You're a stranger. So once you meet that person, to even have access to their time, their energy, their space, they invite you and say, yo, let's do this again. And you don't take them up on it.
Wow.
You're literally writing yourself out of an opportunity every single time, because every single day that you get a chance to meet with someone for more than 20 minutes is an interview. Hell, even less than 20 minutes, because you're not going to be talking for those 20 minutes. So there's a lot of practical parts about all this, but I think networking is so critical, because how else do we make the decision, right? You want to get into a law school, the world is so small. The world is so small. You would be surprised who these people know, what they can do by just being you, showing up, being you, confident in who you are. There's going to be enough people who rock with that and can advocate for you.
Did y'all just catch those gems? I pray you guys caught those gems. I mean, literally, you are making your own opportunities. And one of the things I used to tell people jokingly, but seriously, bro, is I say, man, there used to be a time where maybe we could make excuses. We can't get in the room. We don't know this. I was like, but now we're literally in a space. You want to go, you trying to connect with a lawyer? Go to the courtroom. You trying to connect with a law school? Go to their visit. Go to their events. You trying to connect with a law firm? Pull up and ask about volunteer opportunities. Contact their office to see about doing opportunities to volunteer. But I think what happens a lot of times is people forget that, man, you got to put in the work. We can't be entitled, and sometimes you're going to be told no. We're afraid to get rejected, I'll be honest. But oftentimes, I think what was beautiful about what you said is it's almost just like every step you're building a foundation, and you may not be able to reap that fruit immediately, but by building that foundation, that's a fruit that you're going to be able to reap later. And I think that's beautiful because I want you to share with them, because literally what you did your first year is how you're at the firm that you are at now. How did you do that?
I mean, honestly, it's a mold. I mean, that could be alive in itself, right? And I think it starts with discipline. Like discipline is what steps in when motivation is lacking. But I talk in a lot of analogies because it's easier to break down, but like, you don't go into the gym and never work out a day in your life and go in and work out for 4 hours.
True.
And everyone knows if you work out hard enough, that next day you're going to be sore, right? And so when you think about growth and that idea, law school is, I don't think substantively, I don't think it's hard. It's just a lot of work. It's a ton of work, right? So like building up to that, right? What does it take? For me, I was putting in on average 70, 80 hours a week in law school. And so for me, going to a big law firm and putting in those 70 to 80 hours a week was easy for me, right? Because I had that foundation. And so getting that first year, making sure that your grades are in the right place, I had to fight. I went and made sure I knew all the 3Ls who I look up to, who had the jobs I wanted, who had the grades I wanted. And it wasn't just, the people who had my professors. Like, I wanted to learn what excellence looked like, right? And so I had to make sure I can't go to the dinner table at home and say, Mom, Dad, like, you guys both aced law school. Like, how do I do it? I had to find those examples. I had to fight for those examples. And not just the ones that like were doing it, but the ones I saw myself in, right? Because that's important too. If we can talk to someone who's in the top 10 of the class, but if you don't see yourself in them, that might be a journey that does not look appealing to you, right? And so it was a multitude of different things, right? Like a huge part of that process is office hours, right? Getting to know your teachers in the different level. Most people will overlook the idea of building relationships with their teacher past the idea of getting an A in a class. But like the teachers are the most important people to connect with because they've taught generation after generation after generation of attorney. And they want to see you win. Their check depends on you winning.
Yeah, it's true.
So like build those relationships, office hours. But the thing about what's different between undergrad and law school is you can't just recall the information, Like you're not here to just recall all the things you learn. It's with the intention of never seeing the same set of facts again. So you have to recall and practice, 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 right? Like it's a foreign feeling to be 2, 3 weeks in and you're reviewing without any test in sight, right? Because a lot of times, like you may be in a class where the only grade you get is a final. That's a very scary feeling, and you can't wait until week 13, week 14 when it's time to say, do I get this? Do I understand it? To try and put this together because again, there's no such thing as an A. You may think you understand it, but do you understand it better than the next person?
Yes.
That's the whole difference of law school, right? Like I think I understand it. And I talk to so many students like I really thought I had it. And they get the D. And they're rudely awakened, right? So again, I'll have a firm belief that if you put the work in, it's going to happen, but you got to put the work in the right areas,
That's powerful.
right? And you also got to be real with yourself. You got to be super real. So many students I mentor will say, yeah, I was in the library for 15 hours, but only doing work for a quarter of it, a third of it, right? So when you look in the mirror and you go home and you do your skincare routine in the mirror, you got to ask yourself, like, you got to be real with yourself. Law school is a journey of self-realization. You got to ask yourself, and did I put in the work that I said I did? And what can I do better? And every single day is an opportunity to be 1% better, right? You don't have to do 100%. You got to be 1% better. We don't come from this environment. So if you can start now, if you're a pre-law student, start yesterday in building the examples of who you see yourself in and finding the blueprint to execute what it is and what success looks like for you.
And I'm so on board with what you're saying. I mean, literally, when you think about the whole picture, like you said, law school really isn't hard. And I think oftentimes the first reality check people get, bro, is when they take the LSAT. It's like, okay, I have to make changes. One of the examples I oftentimes use for people is I say this, how often does our phones update? Our phones update every day. I mean, apps are updating by the minute. But how often do we make updates to ourselves in our preparation and evaluating ourselves? You know, when you go and look at the apps, they got all those comments. And what is a person, the app creator, doing? Reviewing those comments and making changes, fix them constantly. But oftentimes when we see things that we either one get wrong or see things that happen, we just kind of ignore it, right? It's going to be all right. But then it kind of becomes a snowball effect. And that it's going to be all right ends up being that barrier that ends up hindering us in the end. And so I think that's a perfect example. So one of the things that's also interesting, you initially wanted to go into sports and entertainment law. So how did you end up falling for IP law?
Yeah, so I originally wanted to do sports entertainment. I still do, right? Sports entertainment, to be very frank, is not a type of law, right? It's an industry. And so, not knowing any better, I'm like, well, uh, first I wanted to be an athlete. If I couldn't play sports, I wanted to talk about sports. I'm a past journalism major, so it all just sort of made sense. But I ended up going into M&A and private equity, mainly from, following my path, but reverse engineering what I wanted my life to look like, right? We may not want, and I'm a firm believer, if you take anything from this, I'm a firm believer that if you don't know what you want to do, it's perfectly fine. But that to me just shows me that you haven't met enough people that you see yourself
Wow.
in, because again, I know plenty of people who never saw themselves doing tax law, but become a tax attorney because they had a few people pour and invest into them, made them feel like they could do it. So at the end of the day, like, we are on a journey. We owe it to ourselves. If you're going to spend that much money, that much time, this cannot be a plan B. Do not go to law school if it's like, I just want to make some money. Like that. No, like, you have to make this a priority. You have to make this a plan A, B, C, D, every single to Z. And you have to exhaust yourself in that way. And so for me, coming into transactional practice, like, law school is very, very litigation
Yeah.
focused.
Yeah.
So it was almost like, knowing myself, understanding that I'm very business oriented. I love going into businesses and being like, what makes this work? Right. And then also understanding, like, law school was the best decision I ever made. And the reason that is because I put 100% into it. But one of my mentors told me, like, if you want to be a doctor, you go to med school. If you want to be a lawyer, if you want to do anything else in the world, go to law school. Why? Because law school and law touches every single part of this world. You name it, there's a lawyer there.
True.
And if not, a lawyer can get their way into it. They can get their way into a discussion. So that just makes you that much more valuable. So for me, learning business, wanting to know business, I found myself on the transactional side of things. I really didn't see myself in court. And even if I did, I'm so competitive that I would want to, win. And you realize that not many of those cases go to court unless it's like, criminal or family law or, some of those things that to me was too emotionally taxing. I think I'd be a hell of a litigator, but like for me it was, how do I learn something that can be translated into so many different ways? So being in M&A and private equity, I do billion-dollar transactions with a B. And that's still something that, like, is a culture shock to me, because to see 9, 10, 11 figures on a paper, it's like, what is money at that point? It's a concept. And so like to learn that like I can take these billion-dollar companies, learning them, learning what makes them work, the equity components, learning how to operate in debt, and take those resources to our people, right? In our businesses, right? How do I can form a business in a couple minutes. Most people think like, oh, I gotta like, save up and do, it's gonna take me a long time. Like when I talk to most people who are trying to start their first business, I'm like, yeah, we can get this done and we can do all this in a day. They're like, what? Right? So knowledge is power, but I think, M&A is specifically is how you turn millionaires into billionaires. And we got a lot of millionaires. There's a lot of black millionaires. And so my goal is how do we turn our millionaires into billionaires, learning that to a concept. But also I found myself in it, I think, by just constantly trying to find myself in other people, reverse engineering my life. I want to live in the high-rise apartment. I want to live and see the skyline. What type of job okay, I need to go into big law so I can pay off my debt, but also like so I can get the foundation necessary. I left Kirkland to go to another firm so I could have a little bit more autonomy to build and to chase my dreams, right? Of doing NIL work, working with our entertainers, our athletes, right? And also, I'm a fourth year associate, but I feel like I can bring a business. You know what I mean? Like, and so to be in a space where you are always like, for most people, getting to a place like Kirkland would absolutely be, I made it.
That's it, right?
I can turn it off. I don't got a network no more. To me, was the foundation. So for me, it was how do I build from this? I never missed a step in building relationships. And so when I did end up leaving my firm, I only applied one place. I only applied one place because that's all that's needed when you do the necessary research. You build the right relationships. And the interview for me was only a formality,
Because
right?
you're
And so
already.
that's right. That's right. And so me getting into M&A and private equity has also been a really great opportunity because you really get to see what making a deal from start to finish, purchasing a company, the diligence behind it, and really just like getting a very, very broad view of what it means to be a transactional attorney because you touch so many different spaces, identifying issues, being able to realize, okay, that's a real estate issue. Let me talk to my real estate team. Let me make this digestible for the client, right? Like, oh, this is an IP issue. Oh, this is a labor issue. Oh, this is a benefits issue, right? And learning companies, right? Oh, this is what the top company does with their employees, their benefits that they get, the pensions, the different types of welfare plans and all that type of stuff that go into that. You learn that from such a macro level, and it just makes you that much more beneficial.
Wow, you got people dropping their draws, bro, and the parts of the things that you're saying, and I think it's just amazing. I never thought about the concept of being able to see the life you want and reverse engineering it to be able to see the steps to being able to get to that point, as opposed to I think oftentimes we just see the big picture and not realizing the small wins that take you to that point. Literally, some sister said in the comments, she said a formality. Wow. But if you do put in that work, build those meaningful relationships. And I want you guys to understand what he's saying. It's not easy.
Oh no.
It's not, he said he put in 70 to 80 hours of work in law school. So when he was able to go to the firm, it was what he was already doing. So understand this, you guys. That means my man he was comfortable being uncomfortable, realizing that he was taking a down payment on a greater tomorrow. And that's something, it has nothing to do with IQ. Has everything to do with willingness to say, do I see the big picture? And what do you see in the background? You see the skyline, right? He reverse engineered it and understood that initially it wasn't going to be manifested immediately, but in time it was going to build its way there. And that's amazing.
Yeah, and I also realized like, there were so many days where I was like, I can't do this no more. So let's be honest, like I'm not a robot, right? Like there's so many days where it's like, yo, is this worth it? The one thing I struggled with the most was, am I doing enough to get where I want to go? Like, and is this gonna all work out? And if I could tell myself the one thing that creates success is consistency.
Yeah.
It's not always about taking 10 steps in a day. It's about, yo, did I make any positive movement?
Yeah.
Reality situation is I'm not here sometimes just being 1% better isn't even realistic. How can I be 0.1% better? You
Facts.
know what I mean? Like, and so that all builds up. I've been hustling this way for almost 7 years, right? They say like 10 years is that magic number. Rick Ross was rapping for 10 years before he got his first break. How many of us are willing to do something for 10 years before? Now, again, because you're going into law, it won't take that long because you're that valuable. But are you willing? You know what I mean? And so for me, realizing how do I stay motivated, I put people around me who literally shit on my whole life. You know what I mean? Like people who literally were doing so much better than me, to realize that if I continue, as long as I continue, this is what my life will look like. The people who have the Bentleys, the people who work with Rick Ross, the people who work on Netflix, the people who, like, those are the people who gave me hope and aspiration, realizing, okay, I just got to keep going.
And so, to a pre-law student out there who may be in the same situation, first gen, how do they go about starting to seek out those relationships? Because I think a lot of times people don't know how to start.
Yeah. You know, they say that failure isn't, you know, failure isn't really, you know, the actual failing. It's not trying, right? Like, and you guys have to realize that it's not going to be perfect. There's no pathway to the top that's linear, right? Like, you may take a couple steps and then go right back down, right? But as long as you continue, you'll get there. And it takes a lot of confidence, it takes a lot of courage. But that's why I created the Law School Mentor in the first place, right? Is to create an environment and a community where if you don't know where to start there, right? So that we as a community can help you extend a hand and say, you know what? We don't got it all together either. We're just people just like you, right? A 1L is just like you. A lawyer, we all were at some point a pre-law student.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like your journey of a 1,000 miles starts with a single step. So you may seem like, wow, like how do I get to become an attorney? It starts with a single step. It starts with having the confidence to sign up for the LSAT. It starts with having the confidence to ask the person who got a 170 on the LSAT, like, how did you do it?
Wow.
And to always sort of feel like, you know, I'm a firm believer that you're always going to be the perfect package. You just probably at the wrong door. If someone does not see your value, so what? There's billions of people in this world. I tell people this all the time. You have to have the confidence to go door to door like you have a product that everyone needs to hear about. And the thing about it is, if you have the opportunity to mention and to talk to every single person in this world, and you got a 1% success rate, you have millions of people on the side. You'd have millions of people, 1%. And you got to have confidence that you can do more than 1%, right? So this mentality for me came from selling the newspaper. You know what I mean? Like when I sold the newspaper, my success rate, if it was getting someone to subscribe, like there were very few days where I had success. So I had to redefine what success looked like for me. Success was being able to go up to that door and knock on it, even though I had a feeling that they wouldn't answer the door. Or I had a feeling that they may slam the door in my face, right? Like, so the opportunity to put yourself out there, right? Law is rooted in advocacy. You are here to be an advocate for a client. Sometimes, which is like a stranger, someone you've never met before. You're here to advocate for them the best of your ability. If you can't advocate for yourself after being around yourself for 15, 20, 30 years, how are you going to advocate for someone else? So, to be honest, the pre-law student in me, I would tell them, like, and the pre-law students out there, you got to have confidence to start, and you have to believe in yourself almost to the point where it's delusional.
Yeah.
Because the world wants to count you out. And most of the time when someone doesn't believe in you, it's because they didn't believe in themselves. Don't let someone else's inability to see your vision be the reason you stop. And no matter where you come from, if, you know, the reason your calling is your calling, it wasn't a conference call.
It wasn't.
You know what I mean? It wasn't a conference call. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't for everyone to understand. If you want to go to law school, there's nothing stopping you. You go to law school. And there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and thousands of people that are there to support you. But it may not be your immediate environment because they may see jealousy in you first. It could be your family, it could be your friends. But you got to have the confidence to be like, you know what? no matter what my immediate environment gives me, I have the confidence to make whatever it is happen. I just have to find it, and I have to keep going and keep going. Because again, success is rooted in consistency. And if you think about it, there's not one single thing that you do that you're consistent at that you're not good at, right? If you go to the gym consistently, you're gonna get in shape. You eat well consistently, you're gonna be. You brush your teeth consistently, you're not gonna like everything that you do with consistency, you're gonna be good at. It just so happens that we write ourselves out before we can be consistent enough, right? When we sit here and start at the top of the year and want to go to the gym, 2 weeks in, we make excuses. You know, it's funny. I have a bracelet that I wear, and it says, "Excuses don't get it done. Execution does." We can make up a ton of reasons why we're not doing something. Oh, I don't have any attorneys in my family. Oh, I didn't get the outside score. Oh, but as long as you don't give up, the only person that's stopping you is you.
Wow. That's almost prophetic, bro, because the comment I pinned, I said, you can't lose if you don't quit. Wow. That's a full circle.
That's right. That's right.
And so one of the things I'm starting to do now, I want to start asking this question. It's going to sound corny, but I want to start asking everybody this question. And I probably should have started off our interview with this, but when do you think you fell in love with law?
Mm.
That's a deep question, right? Because it's definitely tell people for law to love, because if we only love makes us sacrifice as much as we do. And I think I always want to ask people, when did we fall in love with law?
I don't know if I fell in love with law. I fell in love with the ability and the access that law created for me. You know what I mean? I fell in love with it as a means to an end. I realized that I get in any door with being an attorney, right? Like I get respect. People sit up straight because I'm an attorney, right? And I love hearing, oh, I didn't even know you're an attorney. You don't act like an attorney. You don't dress like an attorney. You don't I love hearing those types of comments because it's just clear they haven't seen enough people like us. And to be organic and truthful to who you are means that we're here to take up space. As long as you're respectful and professional, you know what I mean? Like you deserve to be here. Now, me falling in love with law, I think I fell in love with the success component of like, I can do a lot of damage with this. This is a key. It's like a universal key that opens any door. You know what I mean? So like to me it was the best decision. I fell in love with this idea because it was like, I want to go to the Drake concert. Yeah, I know attorneys, I know all these types of things that give me like tickets for free because of relationships. Right? The value that I go into any door, like any room, I add value in any space. Business owners, even though I don't do criminal law, I can give you a criminal attorney. Why? Because my friends are criminal attorneys, right? So when you just talk about like law being so powerful, there's nothing I feel like I can't do.
Wow.
So I'm in love with that. All right. I'm not in love with M&A and private equity. No way. No. I'm in love with this idea that what I can do with this access is to expand it and to exponentially give it to the people who do need it. Right. And so for me, it's been access. You know what I mean? Like access is critical. We don't become because we don't have access. There's a lot of talented people out there who don't have the right access.
Right.
And a lot of it is, it's not our fault. It's not our fault. But you can't take no for an answer, right? And for anyone who closed the door on you, build a side door.
Wow. And one of the things I like to close with, bro, is I always like to give you the last word to give an encouraging word. I know right now, bro, there may be somebody out there who's on the cusp of giving up, maybe just got the LSAT scores back, maybe just got placed on academic probation in law school. And oftentimes I give you guys the floor to give them some encouraging words, to tell them to go ahead and keep them motivated and keep them pushing forward. So go ahead, bro.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, honestly, for the student who counts themselves out, the day you count yourself out is the day that you lose. Because the world is doing that for you. The world is going to count you out even if you're at the top. And there's going to be tons of people who don't want to see you win. And at the end of the day, you have to want this bad. You know what I mean? Like, because this space was not created for us. It's a conservative field. Less than 5% of it look like us. I can give you statistic after statistic after statistic, but again, either we're going to make excuses or we're going to dust ourselves off. We're going to go back to the drawing board and we're going to sit here and say, you know what? I may not have done it this time, but there's nothing stopping me. The only thing that's going to stop you is you. And so at the end of the day, if I can help you in any way, shape, or form, please just reach out. I think a huge barrier of where our success lies is our inability and our pride to ask for help. And you're going to learn from that experience or exposure. So there's no reason that you have to learn how to do this by yourself if you have the confidence to seek out what you need from others and to see yourself in others and to place yourself and to force yourself into an environment where you can succeed and thrive. You cannot be a shark in a fish tank. Most of us looking to go to law school, you are a shark in your community. Oh, you want to go to law school? You're a lame, you are a nerd, you're a geek, whatever you want to call it. But you got to be different. You know what I mean? To be different is success. The celebrities, if you get to know celebrities are weird. They're different. They're authentically and organically themselves, right? And so for that pre-law student who's thinking about giving up on themselves, the day you quit is the day you lost, right? And you can't give up, right? And if you need resources, ask. If you need access, fight for it. If you need mentorship, don't stop at the first person who doesn't answer your email, right? Because even if you send me an email, I have every intention of responding. It could literally be bad timing, right? You don't know what that other person on the side of the phone is happening to them or what's happening on the other side of things. So be patient, but be relentless.
Wow.
Be an advocate. You know what I mean? Be an advocate for yourself because you have the key just by even thinking about becoming an attorney to change the whole trajectory of your family for generations to come. And so to be that person takes confidence, it takes courage, it takes resiliency, and you cannot take no for an answer, right? So join us in this distinguished field, but outside of that, like do this because you want to. Do this because you can. And at the end of the day, anyone who says no, prove them wrong.
Wow. I don't know how else to end the show, but thank you, Yoshi, for joining us today. And you guys can also follow Yoshi on the Law School Mentor. Understand you have resources here. Bree, he heard what he said, Bree. He said, ask for help. Understand, do not allow your pride to prevent you from getting your blessing. Thank you, fam, so much for joining us. You guys out there, keep fighting. We're rooting for you. We're praying for you. Reach out. We're here to help you. You guys have a good day, and thank you so much, fam, for joining us today.
Thanks, James.